Today I'm out looking for wide angle subjects. Why? Because I've got a wide angle lens. I'm not used to shooting with ultra wide angles. This is a 9mm from AstrHori and it's pretty new, and they've given me an opportunity to give it a go and tell you what I think about it, and them of course, but you know, you and enjoy it. So I've come down to the beach, all the fishing boats and tractors and everything here. I thought, well, let's kind of give it a go, see what we can come up with. There's always the opportunity of foreground on a beach. Often what there's a lack of is actual kind of distance things, subjects and such. But perhaps I can combine foreground with distance only being a metre or two beyond it. I think this pile of rope down here is an ideal opportunity to try out this whole idea of getting a bit of foreground and a bit of subject and kind of work them together, because this thing will focus down to 0.7 of a foot. So what's that? 0.7 of a foot, about 8 inches, something like that. And I thought, well, why not? This seems to be a really good subject to work with because it's telling a story, and the lucky positions of these things works really very well. Though I think I'm going to have to be sure of a good focal range, I'm going to have to really look through the viewfinder and kind of also use the focusing aids in the camera to be sure here. This is a very wide angle, and if I say I want something like f11, I'm getting an enormous amount of depth of field in here as well, and I need to work out whether I want any gap of shingle between this and the tractor, and I think just that little bit of space kind of makes quite a difference to it. Now of course naturally the wide angle is accentuating lines a little bit here, whilst the lens is pretty much rectilinear and isn't a great deal of convergence on it. You can't get away from the fact that it is a wide angle, so therefore things do kind of stretch about a little bit, but you know, I don't feel that that's anything that we should concern ourselves with. I think I'm quite happy with that shot. It looks good on the back of the camera. You'll see it on a big screen before I do. Do let me know what you think about it. Now a lot of people may think that a wide angle is great for landscapes. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't think it is. Each to their own, of course, but you might turn around and say, well, the landscape's wide, therefore you want a wide angle. Not often not, no, because yeah, whilst the landscape is wide, part of your job of a photographer is to convey stories within that landscape. So I have a story of the tractor and the rope here and the boats leading off in the background. Is there a story in the scene here? Not particularly, it's just chroma pier, bit of land, a lot of sea, and by the time you've kind of got that into a wide, let me get it here, there we go. There's our 9mm shot of it. It's really not much of an image because, well, we haven't really considered enough about it. We've got stuff in the middle, as you can see here. Let me turn you more to the kind of image that I was getting. So, yeah, stuff in the middle, but bugger all down the bottom and bugger all up top. It's an image that you might as well, yeah, really just emphasise its narrowness by making it into something like a 6:17 aspect ratio. But even then, not that much of an image. To make the most of a wide angle, I thoroughly recommend that you get close to something and choose the subject in the foreground. And because of the 2.8 shallow depth of field wide open aperture of this, I can start throwing that into a really soft focus. But don't go thinking it's going to be completely blurred, because it's not, because that's not how wide angles work. You are still very much able to see what's in the background of this image. The close focusing of this wide angle lens is typical of wide angles, of course. As I say, getting to within 0.7 of a foot. I'm just finding real interest in this diesel pump here, because it's obviously been steam cleaned or something recently, because there's hardly any paint left on it. That makes it genuinely interesting, and there's an image to be got with it kind of straight on. But I think also there's images to be had looking down it as well. I did a bit of scouting, and I think there's a great image kind of looking up from here through the engine, and the way that that's kind of got oily and such over the years, right the way through the tractor to the relatively modern boat behind it and the outboard engine on it. This lens really is a foreground monster. I have a particular ilk of photography, if you like, wrong word I know, but I do tend to shoot far more portrait images than I tend to do landscapes, and this lens is just leaning me well into that even more than usual. I've got a nice kind of view here. Again, the story is very much, it's the fishing industry of this town. We've got this wonderful old but still working Fordson major tractor. Nice rust hole here. Something's been bolted on in the past, possibly something slotted through. Hole's got very raggedy. And we're putting that in the bottom corner of the image. And we're kind of just looking through, getting the seat on here, getting the steering wheel and some of the dials there, and looking through a hole in the steering wheel through to the end of the pier. It's really nice image. Certainly from the image that I took of Cromer Church, which you can see up there in the distance. Well, you might if the camera's picking it up with the exposure. I was up just in front of that doing a slight tilt up with it. The verticals looked pretty straight. There was no obvious convergence from it. And I have to say, again, initial reaction is, yeah, it looks pretty good. So yeah, the AstrHori APS-C 9mm lens. Now, I'm making this distinction with APS-C because whilst this is obviously designed for an APS-C sensor, I've been using it on a Micro Four Thirds sensor. Therefore, I'm not getting the full area coverage that this lens is capable of. What's important to realise about my experience with this lens is because I'm not getting the full wide image projection of it, I can't tell you what the edges are like on an APS-C sensor. There are other reviewers out there that have looked at it on an APS-C sensor from a Fuji or a Sony or whatever it happens to be, and they are saying that the edges are a little soft, and I would concur. In actual fact, the whole thing is a little soft. If you're looking for pin sharp, this ain't it. But, and this is a really important but, the vast majority of us will never, ever really notice it, because even at a 20 megapixel sensor, which is what I'm using, that is a large image. Yeah, most of us are using 1080p screens, and that's about 2 megapixels. So a 20 megapixel sensor is 10 times the size of the screens that we're using. We are always compressing these images down from our native 100% 20 megapixels and bigger down to nothing. And you're always going to get compression defects through doing that. You can't shrink something and keep all of the detail there. Therefore, the kind of softness that we're experiencing with this, the vast number of people will never, ever, ever notice. And I think that's an important point and distinction to make. I'd say it's acceptably sharp across its range from what I've seen. But if you're going to pixel peep, you're going to hate it. But then again, if you're going to pixel peep anything, truly, I don't know what your life entails otherwise, because we never view anything at 100% generally anyway, because we don't have the technology to do it, and no one will print it at that kind of size generally, or very few of us would. But then again, if you are going out with the intention of doing that, I'd also ask you why you're spending $100 and something on a lens, and not spending 10, 15 times that much. If you want that kind of perfection, you're barking up the wrong tree. This is a budget lens. It performs a bit better than a budget lens should, and I've got no problems with it. In terms of handling, it is beautifully smooth, but the aperture ring is incredibly close to the mount, which makes operation of it a little bit difficult for someone with fat fingers, for sure. But of course, a lot of APS-C cameras are smaller by design, and therefore, it's not a problem, but it's something you need to be kind of wary of. And also, because you've got to kind of reach around it, you can easily adjust the focus while you're doing it. So bear that in mind. I mean, it's beautifully smooth, and indeed there are midway stops between the apertures, and the apertures are also color coded, so you can work out where the depth of field happens to be using the color code from the aperture itself through to the line on the markings. We could say, for argument's sake, at f8, if we're at 0.6 of a meter, then down to 0.4 of a meter, and to 2 meters, everything's going to be in focus, and it's going to fall off a little bit from that. But having said that, the markings and the focal range is pretty tight. Yeah, we're kind of 1 meter, then no more than 10 degrees turn to 2 meters, and another 5-10 degrees turn to infinity. Yeah, there's not a great deal of movement on it. However, there is a bit of focus breathing throughout the range on it. So something to bear in mind if you're got things critically in particular places. Not that you're going to try and focus stack particularly with this, but that breathing, if you're going to focus stack, could be a real challenge for you. I don't think there's a particular detraction on a lens that costs under kind of a couple of $100. I think this is typically about $160, something like that. I think it remains an absolute bargain for its few faults. It handles very nicely. You can't complain about a few small faults in a lens when it's not so expensive. You really can't. If you need a wide angle for your APS-C camera, the AstrHori 9mm. It's got its faults, but you'd expect them at this kind of price range. I would not question those faults at this kind of price point, because for me to get a good wide angle lens for my Micro Four Thirds camera that's better than this, I'm going to be spending probably at least 3 times the price of this. If I want the best, there's a 7 to 14mm zoom from Olympus, and that's like £900. It might be more, I can't now remember, but it's way out of my price range. But again, the absolute crucial thing with a lens like this is knowing how to use it. Because if you're going to go out and just say, well, it's a nice wide vista, I'm going to shoot a nice wide vista, just don't. This is a lens for somebody that wants to be creative. Somebody that wants to get perhaps nightscapes, because it's an f2.8 for crying out loud. It's good at that, although a little bit soft. You probably want to stop down to at least the half stop between f2.8 and f4. So what's that, 3.2 ish? Then yeah, it's gonna do absolutely beautifully for a whole bunch of things. But use it wisely. Use any wide angle. wisely. It serves its purpose best as a good creative lens. So I'd like to end by saying thank you to Pergear for sending this out to me. It's a nice lens. Yeah, got its faults. I could find fault with anything. Yeah, it's my job. But for the money, I think, yeah, you would forgive those faults. I would say, great thing to go out and try. And yeah, there's links down below. You take care. Thanks very much. Oh, and of course, I'll run you out with some more images that I've got locally and elsewhere with this.